The American economy right now is what?
In trouble.
Why? A lot of the economic data is good. Consumer spending is good.
Yeah, I'm over $33 trillion in debt. We have two presidential candidates who are saying they brought prosperity to this country, but you've got 57% of the American people who cannot put their hands on $1,000 if they have an emergency. And for those people, the engine light goes on in their car, and it's like the apocalypse happened. It's the end of the world for them. We have now kids can't afford houses. The housing price has gone from $215,000 2 years ago to $400,000 today. You know, I have 7 kids who are in the range from 20 to 35, and almost none of their friends are buying houses. That was part of the American dream, that if you worked hard, you played by the rules.
I think the U.S. will remain a very rich economy, but we will not be the only major economy in the world.
At some point, we were actually seeing China overtaking the U.S. in the late 2020s as the world's largest economy. But of course, things changed a lot in the years since then, and we saw China very much not emerged unscathed, economically speaking, from the pandemic themselves.
So the main issue facing China today is that the population, private sector, the investors, they don't believe that the economy is going to grow.
For a while, people had worried that China, may take over the United States, but Chinese growth is not anymore potentially.
The U.S. is undisputedly the world's largest economy, boasting a gross domestic product of $27.97 trillion. China trails in second place with a GDP of $18.56 trillion, 40% less than the U.S. Challengers like Japan and Germany are significantly far off. But will the U.S. continue to dominate the world economy? This is an open secret question. In a recent analysis on CNBC, experts agree that the U.S. will not be the only dominant economy in the world in the coming years. In this video, I'll break down the current U.S. economic circumstances in countries that can overtake the U.S. economy. I will also give reasons why the U.S. still stands as a leading country in terms of economy. Let's get started. How did the U.S. become the world's leading economy? The story of the U.S. rise to today's world's leading economy is one of strategic growth, innovation, and proper timing. Follow me as I'll discuss this remarkable journey. Early growth and expansion. Back to the beginning, the U.S. became an independent nation in July 1776, and as a young country, the U.S. focused on growing its economy and consolidating its territory. Between 1783 and 1853, the U.S. grew more than 3 times in land mass by treaties and purchases. This expansion afforded them more resources that would later accelerate the country's economic development. Post-Civil War industrial boom. The U.S. economy witnessed extraordinary growth in the aftermath of the Civil War. The coal production quadrupled, and the railway track mileage increased more than 7 times between 1865 and 1916, from 35,000 miles to 254,000 miles. During this time, the U.S. overtook Britain in the manufacturing sector with increasing outputs in made goods and steel. This was the beginning of U.S. economic dominance. Rise of the dollar. The U.S. dollar, currently the world's reserve currency, also had a role in the country's rise to economic dominance. How did this happen? Some events are noteworthy. First, the Federal Reserve, the U.S. central bank, was founded in 1913. A year later, in 1914, the first dollar sign was printed. Now, back in World War I, the allies of the U.S. paid for supplies using gold. This was why the U.S. became the largest holder of gold, and the dollar became the world's main reserve currency. World Wars. American involvement in the international arena increased during the 20th century. The U.S. participated in World Wars I and II. These conflicts transformed the United States into a world leader. Add that to the fact that the economy's growth was ahead of other economies regarding output, employed labor, and inflation control. Innovation and entrepreneurship. The U.S. has also been a pioneer in entrepreneurship and innovation. Its diverse community that rewards creativity and innovation has created a vibrant entrepreneurial environment. This environment has attracted people from around the world and has consequently benefited the U.S. economy. International trade and economic policies. The U.S. is one of the world's top trading nations. The U.S. began breaking down the existing markets and extending trade. Economic policies are mostly tailored to foster growth and balance, factors in developing the economy and international economic power. The current economic circumstances of the U.S. How's the U.S. economy doing right now? Although the world's leading economy is still in terms of GDP, the U.S. economy is growing. It rose by 3.3% in the last quarter of 2023, according to Yahoo Finance.
You'll see the U.S. economy grew at an annualized rate of 3.3% in the fourth quarter. Economists had expected 2%. So a pretty big beat here. Of course, if you've been following economic data releases in 2023.
What engineered this growth? Consumer spending, government spending, and exports. However, there are other aspects to an economy beyond the GDP. Income and consumer spending. Personal income rose by 0.3% in February 2024. This also explains why consumer spending also rose by 15%. It felt like everybody got a little raise and decided to get one extra thing for themselves. Inflation and interest rates. The inflation rate, which is how much prices rise on average, is currently at 3.48%. This indicates a marginal rise from 3.15% last month. However, given that the inflation rate was 4.98% last year, the numbers suggest that there has been an overall improvement. The Federal Reserve has implemented several interest rate hikes since 2022 to curb inflation. The rise in interest rates makes borrowing money more expensive. This cuts down spending and, in turn, reduces demand for goods and services, helping to contain the inflation problem. Challenges ahead. The numbers are looking good for the U.S. economy, but challenges still abound. First is the huge national debt, which is approaching $35 trillion. The government will have to navigate this humongous debt because if it spirals out of control, it has dire consequences for both the U.S. and the global economies. Also, the U.S. still imports more than it exports. As of February 2024, the U.S. trade deficit stood at $68.90 billion from $62 billion in December 2023. There's also the matter of the investment position deficit, which currently stands at $19.77 trillion. When a country's international investment position is in deficit, it owes more money to foreigners than it owns in foreign assets. It's like having more debt than savings on a global scale. So, while the U.S. economy is making gains in some areas like income and jobs, it still has serious challenges like trade deficit and debt. How the government will navigate these challenges remains to be seen. However, some nations are making gains and have been touted as potential challenges to the U.S. This brings me to the next segment of this discussion. Countries that can potentially overtake the U.S. economy. In the global economic arena, two countries stand out with the potential to overtake the U.S. economy: China and India. I'll discuss their journey and prospects in the coming years. China's economic ascent. In recent years, China's economy has been growing very fast. You can liken China to a sprinter who picks up speed and seems about to cross the finish line. Some experts project that by 2037, China will replace the U.S. as the world's largest economy. However, a Fox News analysis predicts this may even happen as early as 2032.
And now to this, China is set to overtake the U.S. economy in the year 2032 as Asian economies might all continue to grow.
Let me highlight some factors that may support this projection. Manufacturing and exports. China is now called the world's factory. It creates a lot of products and exports them to other nations. Infrastructure. China has become a model for road construction, airports, and city development. This infrastructural growth helps businesses to grow and easily move goods and services. Technology. China is investing heavily in technology. It is set on being the industry leader for AI and renewable energy. Population. China is densely populated. This implies that the country has a larger workforce, and its customers spend more, thus building the economy. However, China faces challenges. Its aging population is an important concern for the economy, not to mention tensions with some nations of the world. India's rising economy. India is another country that can surpass the U.S. economy in the future. India could equal the U.S. growth by 2073 as long as the country's economy continues to grow at the current rate. Here are some reasons why. Young population. India has a large young population. They can work, earn, spend, and contribute to the economy. Technology adoption. India is adopting new technologies. As a result, businesses would be more efficient, opening up new opportunities. Economic reforms. The government of India is changing the laws to create a more friendly business climate. The goal is to attract more foreign direct investment and boost the economy. Diversity and democracy. The Indian culture and the country's democratic system, on one hand, can be a source of stability and economic growth. India also has challenges. The country needs to boost the education and health sector for its people. Furthermore, it has to invest more in infrastructure to sustain the progress of its economy. Why do these countries matter? China and India matter mainly because of their size and rapid growth. If they can deal with their peculiar challenges, they'll be in a better position to challenge the economic dominance of the United States. The reasons why U.S. remain as the world's leading economy. The U.S., notwithstanding problems and potential rivals, will, at least for the foreseeable future, still keep its position as the ruling world economy, according to an analysis on CNBC International.
I think it's very unlikely that that China will get to US levels of GDP per capita, so that's our measure of wealth, for at least the next 50 years, if ever. So I think the US is going to maintain its status as being richer than China.
I'll discuss some reasons. Innovation and entrepreneurship. The U.S. is the wellspring of innovation. It's home to Silicon Valley and numerous startups. This creative culture boosts the economy and keeps it on the right track. Entrepreneurs can come to the U.S. from any part of the world to turn their ideas into reality. Over 33.5 million entrepreneurs in the U.S. are starting or growing their businesses. Another 18 million are running established businesses. This shows us that entrepreneurship is a critical part of the U.S. economy. Strong financial systems. The U.S. has a deep pool of capital markets, so businesses have more access to financing for growth and expansion. It's like having a large pond for fishing, with the fish being dollars and the fishermen being businesses. Flexible labor market. The U.S. labor market is flexible and can adapt to changes quickly. If someone loses their job, they're sure to get another one. This flexibility is a key factor in reducing unemployment and stimulating economic development. Demographics. The population of the U.S. is growing, although at a slower rate. A larger population means a bigger workforce and more consumers, which are important factors for economic development. Research and development. Research ensures that society continues to grow and innovate. American universities and private companies are global leaders in research. Now and then, they introduce innovations that could open up new industries and create jobs. The U.S. research and development expenditure amounted to $789.1 billion in 2021, likely to increase to $885.6 billion in 2022. This investment is a testimony of the country's commitment to innovation and technology development. Government policies. The American government has a proven record of fiscal stimulus to stimulate the economy. In times of crisis like the pandemic, it provided monetary support for people and companies, accelerating economic recovery. Global influence. The U.S. dollar remains the world's reserve currency. This positions the U.S. as an economic power on the global stage. Besides, much international trade is conducted in dollars, which is advantageous for the U.S. economy. The United States also maintains diplomatic relations with other states worldwide. Good relationships will help you get better trade deals and more investment. Quality of life. Although other countries may grow their GDP, The U.S. still has the best living standards in the world regarding income, education, and healthcare, among others. Military power. A capable military and a strong economy usually go hand in hand. The U.S. spends more on its military than any other country on Earth. This is an important stabilizing factor for the global economy and politics. And that's a wrap on the future of the U.S. economy. The U.S. remains the global economic leader, and while it navigates tricky challenges of national debt and trade deficit, the prospects remain bright. With all the data given, do you think China and India have a chance to become a leading country in terms of economy? Or do you still think the U.S. remains the highest? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. See you on the next one. Peace.